Hello, algebra students. How's it going? Hope you guys are well. My name is Mr. Martin, and I am your teacher, and I hope you guys are all doing dandy. I want to talk about a few things before I start the video. One is, good job to those of you who are sticking with this. I know this isn't fun. Thanks for sticking with it and getting your homework done and doing your best in assignments. And thanks to those of you who are asking for help. To those of you who haven't got anything, there's a fair number of you guys. Please, one, if I don't get anything from you guys as far as assignments, and I don't hear you guys asking for help, the one thing I'm kind of assumed to think is you're not doing the assignments. And if you're not, well, one is it's going to catch up to bite you. So let's not do that. Let me help you. And if you're working on these assignments and then you're struggling with them and then you give up, you gotta ask me and help, and I will literally work through assignments. I'll make it really easy on you. I will. All you gotta do is ask. I'll make it as easy as I can on you. I'm not out here to give you guys more work than I need to. Which is why I'm trying to make these videos. So this video here is about homework number 9 homework number 10, and it is about something called completing the square. So let's erase this. And this not completing the square, man, it's about the quadratic formula. What I meant to say is that the quadratic formula is derived from completing the square. Now, what we've been doing is all about factoring and getting values for x, right? And we've been doing factoring trinomials, different perfect squares, and then the last thing we worked on was completing the square. Probably the toughest one. I'm sorry you had to go through it in online learning. Now this, I think you guys will like it because it's just a formula, and I know some of you guys don't like formulas, but it's a lot easier to memorize or just have a formula on hand than to memorize how to solve a problem by completing the square. Now this formula, right, if I have a quadratic equation, we usually write them like this: ax squared plus c plus bx plus c, and then it equals 0, right? Now, these values are really important because those are the values that we talked about, like the factors of c that add up to b, right? These are the same values that they use in the quadratic formula. Now, where this formula comes from, and I'm going to give it to you, this formula comes from completing the square of this equation right here, this generic equation. I won't go into it because it's some tricky math. It'll just confuse you guys. So if you want me to, I can make a video on it. It's pretty cool. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now this little or big formula is just a plug and chug. Plug and chug. And we'll go into it. All you need to do is just make sure you have it in this form. Make sure you have your equation in this form, and then plug and chug your values into here, and you'll get your answers. Okay. Now the bad part about this is you can't just plug and chug this into your calculator necessarily because of this plus or minus. So it's still going to take some math, but that's okay. You can't get off too easy. Now let's go to some notes and we'll really work through it. Quadratic formula. Obviously, I just talked about it. There it is, right there. A few steps to note. One, and I said this, make sure the equation is set to equal to 0 and written in standard form, like this. Okay, it's set equal to 0 and it's written in standard form. Then we get to identify A, B, and C. In this case, A is 1, B is -5, and C is -36. Substitute these values in the formula and simplify. So the formula right here, you just get a plug and chug. Keep track of negatives. I can't say this enough. Negative B, but then I have a -5, so I really have a -5. We call that a positive 5. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so -5 squared, which is positive 25. We'll simplify that later. Minus 4 times a, 1, we don't need to write that, times negative 36. All over 2 times 1, which is just 2. Okay. Now simplifying that, you can use your calculator to simplify some of this. Like you could probably plug in this little chunk into your calculator and simplify it. But you're going to need to do some brain work, right? So the negative 5 becomes a positive 5 plus or minus the square root. Now this is 25. You guys can do that. 5 squared is 25. Negative 4 times negative 36, probably plug that into the calculator. I think it's plus 144. Yes, 144. And then I divide everything by 2, but the top part I can still simplify. So now this whole plus or minus thing is where you get kind of tricky, right? So I'm going to split this up into 5 halves, or actually, what's 25 plus 144? Is that 169? All right, 169. So the square root of 169 is 13. So I'm going to rewrite this as 5 plus or minus 13, and then divide that by 2. So this is going to be 5 plus 13. What's 5 plus 13? 18? 18 divided by 2. So one answer is going to be 9. 5 minus 13 is going to be negative 8. Divided by 2, negative 4. And there's the other answer. Right, so your final answer would be x equals negative 4 and 9. Right? I'll go more into depth on those because I went kind of quick. So stick with me. We'll go in more in depth. Okay. So but before I go into it, your homework is just this. It's just a bunch of practice problems. Right? Now they have something called irrational solutions, and I'll get into that. So, but first, I want to give you guys some help. Let's do some practice problems. Right? Let's do number 2. The nice thing about this is this homework has the quadratic formula right above you. Also says simplify all irrational solutions. We'll get to that. Okay, so now, first step is make sure it's written in standard form and it's set equal to 0. Now, there's something missing here, isn't there? There's that plus something, right? It's just 0. So in this case, A is 6, B is negative 15, and C is 0. Now plug all these into there. So negative 15 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So 15 squared, you could just do that in your head so you can save time, or do that right now. So 15 squared is 225. 225 minus 4ac. So 4 times a is 6 times c is 0. Oh, guess what? Anything times 0, this all goes away, doesn't it? Shabam bam, it's all gone. Right? Divided by 2a. So now here I have positive 15 plus or minus the square root of 225. Now the square root of 225 is 15 because I just did 15 squared. Square root that and I get 15. So I'm just going to write. Now this is the part where I'm talking about simplifying it. If you're not like, if you really have struggle with all this stuff, calculator can be your best friend. Divided by, 2a is 2 times 6, sorry. Divided by 12. Now here's where you're going to think I have 15 plus 15 divided by 12. And I have 15 minus 15 divided by 12. 15 plus 15 is 30, right, for this problem. Divided by 2 is 15. Oh, sorry, divided by 12 is, no, not 15. Is 30 divided by 12. I don't know what that is. I can do the math. Hold on. 30 divided by 12 is like 6 over 5. Well, hold on. 6 goes into 12 2 times. 6, so 5 over 2. So this equals 5 over 2. 15 minus 15 is 0 divided by 12, which is just 0. So your solutions then are x equals 0 and 5 halves. Okay, that's your solution. There's number 2, right? Some other difficult ones you might encounter are like ones like this, right? Now the first step for number 4 is you got to get everything over to one side and simplify and set it equal to 0. So add the 2x. I'm going to zoom in. Add the 2x to both sides, and then I'm going to subtract the 8 to both sides. And I get x squared equals, or x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0, right? Now, using the quadratic formula, you can already probably factor this on your own, but using the quadratic formula, I would say that a equals 1, b equals 6, c equals 9. Okay, and there you go. And then you plug this in, and then using the formula, you'd see that you'd have negative 6 plus or minus b squared, so 36 minus 4 times a is 1 times 9, c is 9. So 4 times 9. All over 2 times 1 was just 2. Okay? So then I'd have negative 6 plus or minus 36. 4 times 9 is 36. 4 times 9 is 36, right? Yeah, it should be 36. Yeah, 4 times 9 is 36. So plus, and then 36, guess what? 36 minus 36 is 0. So this goes away. And I just get negative 6 over 2. So guess what? My answer is one solution, negative 6 over 2. That's it. Right? And that equals x. And that's because if you factor this right here, you realize that this factors to x plus 3 squared. This equals negative 3. I should write that. Negative 6 over 2 is really negative 3. And guess what? We have x plus 3, so x has to equal negative 3. Right? So there's your steps on that one. Now let's get to some irrational solutions. Let's find the one that's got to be irrational. This one right here. You dare. Okay. So now watch this one. Let's work through it. First off, get this 3 over there, and I get 2x squared minus 8x minus 5. Okay. Now, here's the thing about this one is a equals 2 and b equals negative 8 and c equals negative 5. That I think it might happen. We'll find out. Is when you plug these in, I want to show you an important thing to watch out for. And then I'll have negative 8 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 5. No, it's not going to happen in this one, but that's okay. You guys remember when I talked about the negative radical? Like if I have a square root of negative 1, can I have the square root of negative 1? Right? This is like a does not exist thing, D and E. So anytime, it doesn't happen in this case, anytime you get a negative number in here, just write D and E for does not exist. Or you can write the no solutions, right? No real solutions. No real solutions. Any of those work. I just want to mention that you can still have that happen in the year. That you get a no real solutions because there's a negative that shows up in this radical sign. Okay. Just want to point that out. I thought it would happen in this one, but it doesn't. That's okay. But you do get, I think, a irrational solution. So let's go through that. Negative 8 becomes positive 8. It's just simplifying. Plus or minus the square root of 8 squared is 64. The negative cancels out, so you don't have to worry about the negative when you square it. 4 times 2 is 10 times negative 5 is 50. No, 4 times 2 is 8 times negative 5 is 40. And then these two negatives cancel, so you get plus 40 over 4. Now, here is the thing. 64 plus 40, that's going to simplify to 104. Now, 8 plus or minus the square root of 104 doesn't simplify, does it? It's not a perfect square. Here's what I'm going to say. Leave your answer as this. Actually, better yet, let me backtrack that statement. If my eraser will ever load. I have a tough time on this computer. Oh, wow, it's really slow. Oh, keep going. Okay, there we go. Okay. Give this 4 to each side, and you would really get 8 divided by 4 is 2 plus or minus the square root of 104 divided by 4. This is probably a better answer to write it as. Right, but don't convert this to a decimal. Just leave it as this. Right? And you'll be okay. So that's how you handle radical solutions. Leave it in the radical. Leave it with the plus or minus. Just say x equals this. Right? Okay, I hope that helps. I hope you're a little less confused about this. Please take your time. Email me with questions. Get on Zoom with me. Let's work through it. It's just a formula. Got to memorize this formula or have it written down next to you. Plug and chug and simplify. Plug and chug, or convert to standard form, identify, and then substitute, plug and chug and simplify. All right. I hope that helps. Hope you guys are going to have a good week next week. Please stay active in your schooling. Reach out for me if you need help. Tutoring is also going on with Mrs. J and Miss Ferguson. And also, if you get on Zoom with me, you can also count that as tutoring hours and get extra credit for that. So, but if you don't like me, you can go to Miss Ferguson or Miss J. I won't be offended. Okay, maybe a little bit. But no, really, I won't be offended. As long as you're getting help, I'm happy. Okay, have a good day. See you guys.